Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Translation first. After my departure, I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. Purport. Man's activities in agriculture, mining, farming, industries, gardening, etc. were all on the same scale as they are now, even previous to the present creation, and the same activities will remain as they are, even in the next creation. After many hundreds of millions of years, one creation is started by the law of nature, and the history of the universe repeats itself practically in the same way. The mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. After getting an impetus in spiritual life, Sri Narad Muni, even though a mere child, did not waste time for a single moment with economic development, although he passed towns and villages, mines and industries. He continually went on to progressive spiritual emancipation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the repetition of history which happened some hundreds of millions of years ago. As it is said herein, only the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in this transcendental literature. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatyadesatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhayeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. So not so far back, in the 4th chapter, we have the conversation between Sutta Goswami and sages of Nimishwaranya headed by Shonaka Rishi. Specifically, we hear them speaking. There's questions and answers between them at the beginning of the 4th chapter, right, in this canto. Does anyone remember what the questions are about? Anyone roughly have some ideas what the questions are about? Of course, at the beginning, the very first chapter, we have questions, quite a lot of questions by the sages. But then there are second set of questions by the sages, headed up by Shonaka Rishi. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, so the first question was about the history of Srimad Bhagavatam. How did Srila Vyasadeva become inspired, right, to bring about the Srimad Bhagavatam? Right? Where did he get the inspiration from? What are the details of Srimad Bhagavatam coming up? Right? So this is the first question, right? Or questions surrounding the first question. Any other questions? Do you remember? Yeah. Yeah. So that's the kind of like the third question, where the sages, Shaunaka Rishi asks, how is it that Parikshit Maharaj renounced his kingdom, took to the banks of the Ganges, and fasted till death? Right? Kingdom was flourishing, right? He was young, he was mature in his age. How is it that, he renounced everything, and then he fasted, and he took up to the banks of the Ganges? So that's the questions relating to the third question. Okay? There are two more major questions that are asked. Yes? Yes. Yes. So the sages and Shaunaka Rishi have some ideas about the personality of Sukadeva Goswami, right? Very renounced personality, roaming around, traveling without any clothes. How was he received in Hastinapur? How did he appear in Hastinapur? Right? And how did Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj meet? Okay? Yes. And there was one more question, or one more topic that was requested from Sutta Goswami, from the sages. What were the activities and the birth of Parikshit Maharaj? How did Parikshit Maharaj take birth? Okay. So from these questions onwards, right, these particular 4 questions, the remaining chapters of this canto, all the way till chapter 19, and starting from the remaining few verses of chapter 4, we have answers to these questions. Okay? How did Srimad Bhagavatam come about? What inspired Vyasadeva to bring about Srimad Bhagavatam? What were the birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj? How is it that Parikshit Maharaj renounced his kingdom, took up to the banks of the Ganges, and fasted till death? And how was Sukadeva Goswami received? How did he appear? And how did they meet? How did Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami meet? Okay? So, chapters 4 to 6 in this canto is the answer to the first question. Right? So we have the conversation between Narad Muni and Vyasadeva. Then chapters 7 all the way till chapter 15, right, we have the birth of Parikshit Maharaj and activities surrounding the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. Chapter 16 and 17, we hear about specifically the rule of Parikshit Maharaj and activities of Parikshit Maharaj. How did he rule the kingdom? What did he do? How did he receive Kali? How did he reward Kali? Yes. Chapter 18, we hear about how Parikshit Maharaj gets cursed by the young Brahmin boy Shringi. And then in chapter 19, we hear of Sukadeva Goswami appearing in Hastinapur, and then how the meeting of Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami takes place. Now, in the chapters 7 to 15, there's quite a few details there. These chapters can be further broken up into 3 further sections. Yeah. So, before the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, there was various activities that happened. Right. We have the events that happen immediately after the Kurukshetra battle. Right. How Aswathama makes the attack. Yeah. Then we have the prayers of Queen Kunti. Then passing away of Bhishmadev. And then Lord Krishna makes his departure to Dwarka. Lord Krishna is then received in Dwarka. And then in chapter 12 we hear of the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. And then there are events that happen after the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. Okay. We hear the Brahmanas, the astrologers, they speak about what Parikshit Maharaj will be like, how he will rule the kingdom, how fortunate the Pandavas are for such a personality to be born in their dynasty. So then we start to hear, after some time it is described, that Dhritarashtra quits home. Yeah? And then there is the disappearance of Lord Krishna. And then after the disappearance of Krishna, Pandavas retire timely. Right? Why Pandavas retire timely? Because Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted to retire much, much more earlier. Right? But the Narad Muni instructed him, right, that wait until Krishna's concluded his pastimes. Right? And continue to rule the kingdom. This is your duty, this is your responsibility. So because of the instruction of Narad Muni, Yudhishthira Maharaj continues to rule the kingdom. He wanted to retire just like Dhritarashtra retired, to quit home. But Narad Muni said, don't worry about Dhritarashtra, right? He's engaged in meditation and is making his progress. You continue with your duties until an appropriate time and until Krishna concludes his pastimes. So therefore, then after we hear of the disappearance of Krishna, then Yudhishthira Maharaj, right, decides to retire. Before he retires, he enthrones Parikshit Maharaj as the king of the world. And simultaneously also enthrones Vajra as the king of Mathura. Okay. So then we hear in chapters 16, 17, and also beginning of chapter 18, the rule of Parikshit Maharaj. Right? How nicely he took care of the earth. Earth was flourishing, at least for some time. He established the legs of religion. Yes. And there was peace and prosperity. So this we hear in chapters 16, 17, and 18. Okay. Now just going back, right, coming to the point where we are now. So, Vyasadeva, it is said that foreseeing the qualities of Kali Yuga, understanding that Kali Yuga is very soon to take place, he decides to he decides to split the Vedas into 4. Right? And then immediately after that, he assigns each of the Vedas to personalities to be responsible and to propagate the teachings of those particular divisions of Vedas. And then he compiled the the Mahabharata. And then after doing all of these works, he's feeling dissatisfied. Right? He's not quite content. And he's thinking, why? What's the reason? I've done so much work, and it makes sense what I've done. But I don't feel satisfied. So at that time, Narad Muni appears, and he says to him, he chastises him. Vyasadeva was already somewhat aware of this, but he chastises him. You have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Number 1. And number 2, you have overly emphasized the 4 Purusha Arthas. Right. In breaking up of the Vedas, in compiling the Vedas, and even in the Mahabharata, you are overly emphasized the 4 Purusha Arthas. What are the 4 Purusha Arthas? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Therefore, you should glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right. And then he starts speaking about himself. Because of association of the Bhaktivedantas, because of some service unto the Bhaktivedantas, because of hearing from them of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His devotees, my life became perfect. Right? I was born as a son of a maidservant. I was born in a very lowly condition. But I became a perfect personality by serving the Bhaktivedantas, by getting their association, and by hearing from them the glories of the devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what we're hearing at this very moment, these verses, what we're going through in this chapter, specifically the last 2 chapters, is we're hearing about Nard Muni describing, narrating what had happened, what are the exchanges that happened between him and the Bhaktivedantas. And here, after the Bhaktivedantas leave, right, the steps he takes. Okay. So specifically these set of verses, 11 to 14, we hear of Nard Muni taking on the life of a mendicant. So 11 to 14, Nard Muni taking on the life of the mendicant. Specifically verses 11 to 12, we hear of how he passes through various populated areas. Right? And then we hear of more, specifically the last 2 verses, we're going on to his life as a mendicant. Okay. So this particular verse, if you can repeat after me, after my departure. So here Nard Muni is narrating. Okay, he's speaking. I passed through many flourishing metropolises, towns, villages, animal farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens. I don't know why I keep saying flower gardens. Maybe I'm too close to the flower gardens and I'm getting the scent of the flower gardens. But flower gardens of flower gardens, nursery gardens, and natural forests. Okay, so this is what Nard Muni is saying. After my departure, so after his mother passes away, right, he decides to take on a life of as a mendicant. And he passes through all of these things, right? Various populated areas, right? And then he takes up to the life of a mendicant, a life of seclusion. Okay, so let's look at some of the Sanskrit terms here. Spitan, very flourishing. So all of these situations, towns, villages, flower gardens, yeah, cities, nursery gardens, natural forests, all of these were flourishing. They were in their maturity. They were developed. They were developing. They were beautiful. They were attractive. Right? Therefore the word spitan. Right? Janapadan. So he passed through metropolises, tatra, there, and then pura, towns. Sometimes also pura is translated as cities. Right? When we hear of the story of Puranjan, right? Srila Prabhupada translates pura as cities. But here, pura is as towns. And then gram as villages. Right? Sometimes gram and puras sometimes are mixed. They're used synonymously. Okay? So sometimes a gram is sometimes referred to as a pura, and sometimes pura is referred to a gram. Like that, depending on how developed the gram is, right? The village is. So if it's more developed, it's referred to as a town or a city. If it's still quite nomadic, right, very simple, then it's referred to as gram. Sometimes both are used. Like for example, the town I was born in, the village I was born in, is Madhavpur, okay, in India, west of Gujarat, just above Dwarka. Right? So that the place I was born in is referred to as Madhavpura. But when you look at the kind of like the official letterheads and so on, is also referred to as Madhavpura Gram. Like that. So sometimes the same place is referred to as a town and also a village as well. When I was growing up, that village was very simple. But as the years went on, and when fairly recently when I visited, it's more like a town and it's actually become a city. it's become part of the city. When I was growing up, it was about 2 kilometers away from the city, right? But now, right, it's become part of the city. There's no distinction between Madhopura and the city of Bhuj. Right? If you remember, Bhuj is where the earthquake happened just over a decade ago, like this. So in this way, Pura and Gram are used synonymously to refer to sometimes the same place. Okay. Then we have Raja, right? Big farms. Okay. But also Raja can refer to cow sheds. Yeah. So therefore we have Raja as in, right, Vrindavan, right, or Rajavasis, right, where there are big farms in that place, where there are many cow sheds, many cows, like this. So Raja. And then Akaran, right, mineral fields and mines. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, not just ordinary mineral fields and mines, specifically what Nard Muni passed through, right, were mines of jewels, right, and gold and silver, various precious metals, like this. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that actually Nard Muni was not at all distracted. As he was passing through these beautiful places, Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki, Shishi Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman ki, Shishi Gaur Nitai ki. So all these beautiful places, all these attractive places, all these amazing things that he was passing through, and these valuable jewels he was passing through, right? Various mines that were there that are producing abundant of jewels, gold, diamond, valuable things. But Nard Muni was just passing through them. Okay, so Akran can also refer to not just ordinary mineral fields, but also mines where there are jewels and valuable metals. Kheta or Kheta, agricultural lands. Okay. Karvata, valleys. So valleys is described as where there is towns situated on the banks of a river where there are mountains. Right? And when all of these things come together, where there are people, there's river, there's mountains, where everything comes together is referred to as Karvata or valley. And then Vati, right, flower gardens, just as we have Ashokavati, where Sita, right, was in the garden of the beautiful garden of Ravana, like this. So Vati, like flower gardens, okay, or fruit gardens. And then we have Vanani, okay, forests. So forests, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes as that where there are groups of trees which occur, which come about naturally. And Upavanani are groups of trees, plants, which have been planted, which have been put together by human beings. Like that. Special arrangements are made. So this is Upavanani, nursery gardens. Okay, like this. So Nard Muni passed through all these amazing things and carried on walking. Right? Specifically, his destination was the north. Right? We heard in the previous verse, north. So the first question arises is why here Nard Muni is going towards the north. We also hear that Dhritarashtra also makes his way to the north. Right? We also hear of the Pandavas heading towards the north, beginning with the Yudhishthira Maharaj. And then later on, we also hear, after seeing Yamadutas and also Vishnu Dutas, Ajamil makes his way to the north. Yeah. So any thoughts on why these personalities, and maybe why also we should aspire to go to the north? Yes, Prabhuji. Adam Prabhu. Okay. So someone who's aspiring for spiritual practice, spiritual life, here spiritual emancipation, Srila Prabhupada talks about, then one should travel towards the north, specifically destination being the Himalayas. Why? Because there are various caves. Yes, there are arrangements for one to take up to austere life. Right? There are specific arrangements. There are various hermitages there of the sages. Yeah, and also it's described that this is the doorway. This is the doorway to the heavens or to the spiritual world. So specifically it says Ajamil, right, went to Haridwar. Haridwar. What does the term Haridwar mean? Right? Doors, right, to the place of Hari. Right? So it seems like this area, these regions, the Himalayas, these northern regions, are the door to the higher planets, door to the spiritual world, like this. And of course also, like Adam Prabhu is saying, and later on, in the first canto, specifically chapter 15, where we hear of Yudhishthir Maharaj retiring. So in there, Srila Prabhupada explains, and there is also a verse which says that this is the best place, right, for spiritual practice, because there's caves, there's hermitages of sages, right, so one can take shelter of that, one can associate with these exalted personalities. Therefore, here Nard Muni, right, following in the footsteps, right, of great personalities in history, right, he makes his way to the Himalayas. He travels toward the north. Another question that may come up. His mother passes away, right, and he decides that he wants to take up to the life of a mendicant. Yeah, and he's passing through all of these things. He's not paying any attention. He's not distracted by these things, by these places, by the opulence that's there, right, by the beauty, right, and he wants to practice renounced life. He wants to take up to life of a mendicant. Okay, so why does he want to take up to the life of a mendicant? Someone could say that one can practice Krishna consciousness in towns and villages. Who could have practiced spiritual emancipation, right? And he could have attained perfection in towns and villages, right? Amongst this opulence, amongst this beauty. But why specifically Nard Muni, right, decides to take up to the life of a mendicant? Any thoughts, any ideas? Yes, Mataji? Yes, okay. Anything else? So one can practice complete dependence on Krishna. Yeah, that's one point. That's the main point. Anything else? Yep, avoid distractions. And we're hearing of various distractions here, right? Yeah, how much are we attracted to opulent things, beautiful things, yeah, valuable things? Right? So then these things will become distraction. One will not be able to, or it will be very difficult for one to focus on Krishna, to meditate, because later on we hear of Nard Muni meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So for him to be completely absorbed, to meditate fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he decides for him, right, the best is to practice the life of a mendicant. So life of simplicity, life of dependence, yeah, and also life free from distractions. Right? There's less distractions. Okay, like this. So therefore, we have personalities going into these various regions, and personalities taking on to a life of a mendicant, renounced life. Okay. We're going to kind of go through certain parts of the purport, because there's very powerful and interesting points that Srila Prabhupada makes. Okay. From the beginning of the purport, man's activities in agriculture, mining, farming, industries, gardening, etc., were all on the same scale as they are now. even previous to the present creation, and the same activities will remain as they are, even in the next creation. So Srila Prabhupada is making the point here that don't become bewildered, don't become elated. Oh my God, we're making so much advancement. Look at the mobile phones, look at the internet. Right? How much advancement has civilization, making, right? It's amazing. This is the best times we're in. So one can become caught up in this, that this is the best stage, this is the best times, we have the best facility, we have the best technology, right? We are the best, right? One can become bewildered, one can become, caught up in this. Right? Why is everything beautiful? Why is everything amazing? Why is there amazing technological advancement? Why we're developing in so many different ways? Because my sense gratification. Right? Because it facilitates my sense gratification. So let's all of us feel good about it. Let's feel nice. That yes, we are making advancement. We're doing amazing things. Right? We're amazing people. Let's enjoy. All right? But here Srila Prabhupada is saying, it's happened in the past. It's happening at present. Whatever one is seeing, it's already happened previously. It's happening now. And it will happen in the future. These things will just go on and on. But the living entity becomes bewildered, thinking, I have the best facilities. These are the amazing times, right? We're making so much advancement. Like this. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, no, this is just going on. Right? These things were there so many thousands of years ago in the times of Nard Muni. Don't get excited. Don't get excited. And then Srila Prabhupada continues, after many hundreds of millions of years, one creation is started by law of nature, and the history of the universe repeats itself practically in the same way. So it's circular, right? Material world, right? There's creation, maintenance, destruction, right? There's things coming up, right? Things will maintain for certain times, things will get destroyed. Again, new things will come up. So these things are happening simultaneously. So many things are happening simultaneously. Some of them are being created, some of them are being destroyed. Right? So it's circular. But what we're thinking is, no, we're actually making advancement. This is the best civilization. Right? I have the best comforts, and in the future there'll be more comforts. There'll be more developments. Maybe I don't need to practice and take shelter of Krishna so seriously. Everything will be taken care by the technological advancement. We're now even beginning to take care of the polluted environment as well. Just see. Right? And if that's not enough, we're going out into the space. Right? We may even end up on the moon, or we may live on the Mars. Right? So Prabhupada is saying these things will come and go. These things will come and go. And then Srila Prabhupada says, the mundane wranglers waste time with these archaeological excavations without searching into vital necessities of life. Yeah? So what is the definition of wranglers? Right? Most of us are thinking of that jeans brand, right? Right? But wranglers are those persons who are in charge of livestock, specifically cowherdsmen, those who take care of the animals. Right? So the real wranglers are the residents of Vrindavan, right? The simple people. Yeah? But we have a different kind of, here Prabhupada is saying, not those wranglers, but the mundane wranglers. These wranglers are rightly engaged. The cowherdmen are rightly engaged. But then you have the mundane wranglers. They waste time in looking after livestock for their sense gratification. Right? For their sense gratification. And they make out that this will benefit humanity. No, humanity wants sense gratification and we're facilitating their sense gratification. So they take care of various livestock, right, for their sense gratification, for want of meat. Yeah? And there's no benefit. They're not benefiting themselves, really, in the long term. They're not benefiting humanity and is not pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whereas the real wranglers, the residents of Vrindavan, right, they're there to serve the cows, the animals, right, for the benefit, for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, right, for the pleasure of humanity, the living entities. And in return, they also, right, to get the blessings and the pleasure from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all these living entities. Another definition of wranglers is those who unendingly waste their time in disputes. Right? In disputes. So those personalities who are against the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the devotees, right, they waste their times in these things. Right? They waste their times in materialistic things. Right? So therefore Srila Prabhupada says the mundane wranglers waste time with archaeological excavations without searching into the vital necessities of life. Right? One time a group of devotees approached Srila Prabhupada. We're thinking of going to India and visiting different parts of India and various cultures to find out about art for your paintings in your Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and so on and so forth. So Srila Prabhupada says, don't waste your time in these archaeological expeditions. Right? For our art, for whatever we need to do, Krishna will inspire us. Yes? So the mundane wranglers, right? On my own, I will discover. Right? I will find out the history. Right? I will try to find out how the now came about. And from there, we will also look into the future and see what we can do for the future. But Srila Prabhupada says, no, just serve Krishna, right? And Krishna will give the inspiration from within for whatever one needs to do. For whatever happiness, whatever inspiration one needs, right? To do one's service, to live one's life, Krishna will give from within. And this is what Srila Prabhupada said to the devotees. So I'm going to conclude by just going through a few more lines of the purport. And then we'll stop because we're limited with time. Devotees are going to be out for Janmashtami services. And it's already 8:30. After getting the impetus in spiritual life, Sri Nard Muni, even though a mere child, did not waste time for a single moment with economic development. Although he passed towns and villages, mines and industries, he continually went on to progressive spiritual emancipation. So it's amazing, a 5-year-old boy, is not distracted by any of these things. If you observe children, right, in fact, they become attached to these things very easily. Right, and they move from one thing to another thing, right, to another thing, like this. But Nard Muni, he's passing through all of these things, but he has only one goal in mind, spiritual emancipation. So similarly, spiritual aspirants also should follow in the footsteps of Nard Muni, and not be distracted by things in the material world, right? Things around us, people around us. Right? Vyavas ayatmika buddhi. Right? Our intelligence should not become many-branched. We should not become distracted. Srila Prabhupada concludes, Srimad Bhagavatam is the repetition of history which happened some hundreds of millions of years ago. As it is said herein, only the most important factors of history are picked up to be recorded in transcendental literature. Okay? So Srila Prabhupada is making the point that Srimad Bhagavatam gives the synopsis, right, of history. And only the most important aspects of history are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Whatever we need to know is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sometimes we have questions, right, as we're going through Srimad Bhagavatam. Why this? Why did this person do this? Right? Why did he make this choice? In the 5th canto, the hellish regions, we hear of the Jambu Dweep and so on and so forth. And we have so many questions. Yeah? Right? But Srila Prabhupada is saying here, only the most important history is given here. So whatever we need to know is there. We may have these further questions and we may do a little bit of endeavor to try to, kind of satisfy our curiosity somewhat. But we shouldn't get too much into it. Because the Prabhupada is saying, whatever we need to know is already here. Whatever history we need to know is here. Whatever information we need to know is here. We do not need to go anywhere else, or we do not need to make any separate endeavor. We do not need to go into archaeological expeditions like this. So from the Srimad Bhagavatam, try to understand history, try to understand the present, right? And of course also the future. And accordingly, take up to Krishna consciousness seriously, and Supreme Personality of Godhead will give us the intelligence, right? The devotees will give us mercy, through the devotees' mercy, by serving the devotees, by hearing of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by associating with the devotees, then we will make advancement and make spiritual emancipation as Nard Muni did here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. So unfortunately we run out of time.